Have you ever felt like something or someone invisible is steering your life? Not a ghost, not fate, but a force buried so deep in your mind moves you without asking. Every decision, every craving, every word you regret saying. It's their silent, ancient, relentless. Carl Jung called it the unconscious, but even he warned, that's just the surface, because hidden within it is something far more primal, something that doesn't knock politely. It doesn't need your permission. It just acts. In its name, sex. Not the act, not the pleasure, not even desire as you think of it. I'm talking about sex as simple as a psychological force. So is the engine behind your ambition, your shame, your obsessions. Don't believe it? Then ask yourself, why do you dress the way you do? Why do your words suddenly change around someone you want to impress? Why do you chase success, validation, or likes on a screen? And why? In your quietest moments, does something still feel missing? Beneath all that beneath your logic and manners is needed, older than your name, older than society itself, a need to be seen, desired, wanted. But here's the catch. If you don't see that need, if you keep pretending it's not there, it won't vanish. It'll grow roots in your unconscious, where it becomes your shadow. That's what Jung warned us about. The parts of you deny don't disappear. They just grow in the dark. And from there, they start making decisions for you. They shape your fears, your relationships, your dreams. They whisper in your ear while you convince yourself you're in control. What we call sex in Jungian terms isn't taboo. It's transformational. It's a mirror, a key, a test. But few dare to walk through that door. Because facing it means confronting your most inconvenient truths, the urges you've repressed, the lies you've told yourself, the masks you wear for approval. Here's the brutal truth. Most people aren't who they think they are. They're the sum of their repressed impulses. And the more they deny this, the more manipulable they become. So let me ask you, what if your entire life, your goals, habits, even your values, were stained by a misunderstood sexual drive, twisted, buried, decaying in your unconscious? What if that repression isn't strength, but weakness? What if your morality, your reason, your so-called discipline is nothing more than a beautifully designed cage? See, we're not talking about scandal or pornography. We're talking about something much more dangerous. A society built on the denial of a biological and psychic truth that refuses to be silenced because the sexual impulse doesn't disappear. It mutates into anxiety, into rage, into addiction, loneliness, perfectionism, into the endless thirst for applause. And if you haven't seen it in your life, it's not because it isn't there. It's because you've trained yourself not to look. Because seeing it means admitting you're not entirely in charge. What if your taste in music, your career choices, even your spirituality, were all dressed up expressions of this hidden force? When Jung spoke of anima and animus, he wasn't theorizing. He was witnessing people brilliant, disciplined, successful people break apart under the weight of a truth they had spent their lives avoiding. A truth that desires not love desire. Can hijack your life, can make you betray your plans, your principles, yourself. This is the force no one wants to name. And you don't defeat it with virtue signaling or repression. You only have two choices. Understand it, integrate it, or be devoured by it. This video isn't about sex. It's about the illusion of control. It's about the quiet, burning thread that moves civilization while we pretend we've evolved beyond it. So now you have two paths. Keep believing you're free, or start looking. But beware, because once you see what's been driving you, you may not like it, but you'll know it's real. Brutal, isn't it? Good. Now it's time to step into Carl Jung's world. And I'll warn you, what you're about to discover won't just set you free. It will shatter the way you see yourself. Everything you thought was you. Get ready to watch it burn and rebuild. The first thing you need to know, your mind is not one thing. You are not a unified self. You are a battleground. Inside you live conflicting forces, desires, wounds, ideals, masks. And Jung gave this chaotic ecosystem a name, the self. Not the you that smiles in the mirror, but the totality of everything you are and everything you refuse to be. Most people never come close to integrating it. And deep within that psychic storm lies a force Jung saw as foundational: libido. But don't confuse this with Freud's versions, some narrow drive aimed only at sex. Jung's libido is different. bigger, more dangerous. It's not just sexual. It's the raw psychic energy of life itself. The drive to create, to destroy, to become someone new or cling to the illusion of who you've been. It is quite literally the current your personality rides on. And yes, it includes sexuality, but not biology, as transformation. Here's where most people lose the thread. They believe that withholding sex shows strength. They think repression equals control. They think maturity means silence. What happens? They fracture. They split their identity in two. What they feel versus what they show. And that crack becomes a prison. Because what you repress doesn't die, it hides. Sinks into the unconscious. From there, it begins to move. It's not loudly, but with growing power. A shadow beast behind your every decision. Ever wonder why your relationships fall into the same patterns? Why do you attract the same heartbreak, the same conflict, the same emptiness? It's not bad luck. It's not fate. It's libido in the shadow, repeating the same wound, trying to heal it through chaos. Jung warned us again and again. What you do not make conscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate. And yes, he was including your sexual drives. Because what you won't admit owns you. What you deny possesses you. Here's the part that stings. Repressed sexual energy doesn't just stay in your bedroom. It leaks into your art, your career, your dreams, your very sense of purpose. When you don't channel that energy, consciously it warps. It turns into obsession, into compulsive ambition, into the desperate chase for applause, for success, for control. And suddenly, you're living a life that isn't yours. Just look around. Most everyone is chasing something. A partner, status, money, power. But peel back the surface and you'll find the same hunger. A deep, painful disconnection from their authentic sexual nature. Not the act, but the essence. The psychic root. It's a forgotten truth. This isn't a moral judgment. This isn't religion. It's a psychological reality. Jung saw it again and again. Patients who were educated, refined, self-aware, but internally shattered. People who had read all the right books, meditated every morning, followed the spiritual path, yet were being torn apart by a force they refused to name. They came looking for higher truths. Jung led them back to the most inconvenient one. Desire. Not the polished kind, not the socially acceptable craving, but raw, denied, repressed desire. The kind you spend years pretending doesn't exist. And here's the paradox. The more you deny it, the more it distorts your life. It sneaks into your thoughts, whispers through your decisions. And one day, it speaks through your crisis. And slowly, it happens. You stop being a person. You become a character, a role, a mask, a perfectly edited version of yourself, molded to avoid rejection, to meet expectations, to keep everything in order. Underneath that mask, the unconscious burns. And one of its fiercest flames is eros, that raw magnetic force of attraction, connection, and expansion. And when you repress it for years, it doesn't vanish. It sabotages you in your relationships, in your work, in your mind. You cannot silence a primal force without consequences. And Jung made it brutally clear. All unexpressed energy turns into neurosis. And just look around. Brilliant minds, gifted souls, people with money, status, opportunity.
Utterly
Stuck caught in cycles of anxiety, addiction, emptiness, burnout. And no one dares name the real wound. A disconnection so deep, so denied. It's from their sexual energy, not as something vulgar, but as something essential. Because here's another truth no one talks about. Sexual energy isn't just for pleasure, it's for self-knowledge. It's the raw material of transformation. It's what alchemizes pain into power and confusion into clarity. If and only if you know how to use it. But no one teaches you that. They teach you to fear it, to hide it, to bury it. And so, entire generations grow up mutilated, half of their psyche amputated, half their fire sleeping. But desire doesn't die, puts on a disguise. It shows up as ambition, as obsession, as false spirituality, as a hunger that never ever ends. And now I have to ask you something. Don't answer quickly. How many of your life's biggest decisions were really driven by the need to be desired. How many times did you become someone you knew would attract attention, even if it meant losing yourself? How often have you traded your authenticity for a moment of validation? If you're honest with yourself, truly honest, you'll feel something terrifying, that maybe. But your life doesn't fully belong to you. It belongs to unseen desire. What Jung called the collective unconscious. A silent cultural mold shaping your sexuality without you realizing it. And that mold is powerful. It tells you how to desire, who to desire, when, and how much. It defines what's attractive, what's normal, and what's too much. And if you don't fit, you feel broken. But the most dangerous part? The more you try to fit in. The further you drift from yourself, and then the symptoms begin. Because symptoms, Jung said, are not failures. They are the soul's attempt to heal. Anxiety, depression, insomnia, existential dread. They are not the root. They are the cry. The cry of a part of you locked away for years. And if that cry is coming from repressed sexual energy, not lust, not fantasy, but deep eros, then you are being called. Not toward pleasure, but toward power, toward yourself. Because Jung connected eros to the individuation process, to inner alchemy, to the journey back to who you truly are. Not the persona, not the mask, but the self behind it. And do you know what the first step is? It's realizing you're not free. Your chains aren't in the system. They're not in society. They're not even in your past. They're in your unconscious, in the shadow, in the corner of your psyche where you've exiled your sexual energy, hidden it, distorted it, feared it your entire life. And until you go there, you will keep chasing something outside that's been inside you all along. You'll keep mistaking the need for integration with the need for love, for recognition, for success, when what you need is to reconnect to the source. That primal, dangerous, divine current that's been in you from the beginning. Sex, yes. But not the kind sold by ads and algorithms, the kind Jung saw as the most honest, terrifying, liberating doorway to who you are. And here's the question, the one that changes everything. Will you keep living as if that door doesn't exist? Because if you choose to open it, everything will change. But this is where it gets darker, because most people don't just ignore that energy. They project it. Jung warned. What you do not make conscious will be projected outside and appear as fate. Do you understand what that means? It means the things you criticize, the things you envy, the things you obsess over or reject in others. It is often just you, unrecognized, unclaimed, screaming through someone else's face. And nothing creates projection like repressed sexual desire. That's the root of chaotic relationships, emotional dependence, toxic fantasies, unhealthy idolization. Because here's the twist. You don't fall in love with them. You fall in love with what they awaken in you. Look closer. That person who dazzles you, who destabilizes you, makes you feel a cosmic, almost spiritual pull. You're not seeing them. You're seeing a mirror. A reflection of the eros inside you that you've never dared to touch. That's the trap. You don't love them. You love your power, shining back at you through their eyes. And when that reflection is so overwhelming that you can't hold it, you chase it. You become addicted. Not to love, to need. Because that person becomes your unconscious access point to your soul. But you don't see it. So you call it destiny. You call it soulmate. You write poetry about it. And you get lost. Again, Jung saw it constantly. Men projecting their anima onto women. Women projecting their animus onto men. These aren't metaphors. They're psychic facts and finished parts of you, aching to be whole. And every time someone enters your life and shakes your foundations, they're touching that unfinished part. And what do most people do when that happens? They run toward it, clinging, chasing, obsessing, or they run away defied by what it awakens. Because true eros isn't comfortable. It strips you down. It shows you your reflection without filters. And not everyone is ready to see that. Why does this energy have such power over you? Why can it override your nervous system, scramble your judgment, and shatter your sense of identity? Because it's not just biology. It's a myth. It's a symbol. It's an archetype. Across every civilization, across time itself. I'm in Ganar ever I when with up and one with I web with I with there ever and so for I of sorrow if I have meant the ways of the width of why? Because the sexual act is the one moment where the ego vanishes completely, where control dies, where the divine and the animal merge. That moment doesn't just reveal you, it strips you. And that's exactly why institutions, especially religions, have fought so hard to dominate it. Because whoever controls eros controls the soul. But here's the twist. Sex doesn't have to be physical to own you. You can be celibate, voluntarily, or circumstantially. It doesn't matter. Eros will still find a way. It'll live in your fantasies, in your shame, in your blocked creativity. In this way, you fight for attention, in your fear of intimacy, in your obsessive need for significance. Repressed eros doesn't vanish. It mutates. It seeps into ambition, rivalry, addiction, and sabotage. It's the ghost in your habits. It's the whisper in your worst choices. And yes, even self-sabotage can be a perverse ritual. A punishment you unconsciously inflict on yourself for betraying your longing, for burying it so deep that even you forgot it was there, Jung warned us. What doesn't transform repeats, over and over. Generation after generation. Patterns disguised as fate, desires dressed as goals. Entire families are haunted by buried truths no one dares name. Think how many marriages are graves. How many children grow up carrying the weight of their parents' unlived lives. How many smiles are just masks for the shame no one is brave enough to face. The unconscious doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait. If you won't give it a voice, it will take one. Through nightmares, through compulsions, through chaos disguised as coincidence. That's why Jung didn't preach repression, he preached integration. Desire isn't the enemy. Denial is. You can't kill eros, but you can meet it, listen to it, and learn what it's trying to say. Because underneath the hunger, there's a message, a key. When it's not corrupted, eros becomes something more. It becomes creativity, vision, alchemy, the primal energy that births art, transformation, and truth. Yes, truth. Jung saw the same thing the alchemists saw. That lead, when purified, becomes gold. That instinct, when transmuted, becomes power. That raw, unruly longing, when honored instead of hidden, can awaken you. But only if you stop running. It's only if you stop blaming the world and start facing what's been screaming inside you all along. So the real question isn't, what do you want? What are you afraid would happen if you let yourself truly want it? Rejection? Shame? Or are you afraid that your entire life, your career, your marriage, your persona would collapse under the weight of your unlived truth? Maybe the terrifying thing isn't losing control. Maybe it's realizing you never had it, that what you call discipline was just a system of internalized fear, that what you thought was virtue was avoidance, and that deep down a part of you has always known it. And when you finally see it, when you look eros in the eye, stripped of illusions, something shifts. That's when real freedom begins. Not the shallow freedom of indulgence, but the terrifying, sacred freedom of awareness. To say, yes, I see you. You don't need to wear a mask. You're mine. You're me. It's not just healing. That's power. How do you look at yourself in the mirror when you stop fighting who you are? When do you stop pretending to be what others expect? Be careful. Freedom comes at a price. Once you integrate your eros, you can no longer point fingers. You can't say, this happened to me, or they did this to me. You'll have to admit that you built the cage. It was your repression that turned you into a slave to your desires. And that's hard. Because we live in a culture that elevates the victim, that celebrates pain as an identity, not just a passing phase. Breaking free from this requires strength, demands a death, a symbolic death. The death of the version of you that was built to please, to fit in, to be accepted. That's painful because there are parts of you that can be healed until they are first destroyed. And your relationship with desire is one of them. Now imagine if you had known all this earlier. What if from the beginning you were taught that your sexual energy wasn't a problem but a compass? That you didn't have to hide it, but learn to channel it, turn it into art, into purpose, into power. What kind of person would you be today? What life would you be living? You can't change the past, but you can choose now. Will you keep ignoring this part of yourself? Will you finally let it transform you? And here's the most amazing thing. When you integrate your eros, it no longer controls you. You no longer need validation. You're not stuck in power games or trapped by relational anxiety. Because when eros is conscious, it becomes light. Yes, it can be uncomfortable at times, but it's also healing, creative, expansive. It's a light that not only shows you who you are, but who you could become. So the next time you feel an inexplicable attraction, overwhelmed by desire, paralyzed by a sensation, don't run, don't moralize, don't disguise it. Ask yourself, what part of me is speaking right now? What needs to be seen? Because maybe that desire isn't the problem. Maybe it's the door. And now the final trap appears, the most subtle one. When you finally begin to integrate your eros, the spiritual ego emerges. That voice that says, you've transcended desire, that no longer controls you. But be careful. That's just another illusion, another mask. Eros is not transcended. It is inhabited. It is not overcome. It is honored. And if you think you're above it, then you still haven't understood it. The real work isn't about waking up to desire. It's about walking with it, not turning it into your identity, not clinging to it, not worshiping it. It's recognizing that eros is neither your enemy nor your god. It's just a part of you, a fragment of the fire that burns inside you. And like all fire, it can illuminate or it can destroy you. The difference lies in whether you recognize it or deny it. Look around you. Everyone seems to be chasing something: money, fame, the perfect body, the ideal partner. But what if all of that was just an unconscious ritual, a way of reconnecting with lost eros? What if the real path wasn't about accumulating more, but about looking inside and discovering which part of you was silenced when you started behaving? Society wants you domesticated, predictable. It wants you disconnected from your desire, because it knows that someone who is reconciled with their eros cannot be controlled. They don't buy the empty narratives. They don't need to belong to any tribe to feel complete. They are free. And that's terrifying. Because a free person is dangerous, it's not because they harm, but because they infect. Their very presence reveals how asleep everyone else is. And now here we are, you and me, at the end of this journey, or the beginning, depending on how you see it. What you've heard today isn't the final answer. These are triggers, cracks, questions that might haunt you for days. And that's good, because that's the sign that something inside you is stirring, that what's been hidden is starting to have a name, a shape, a voice. Maybe now you'll start noticing things. Maybe you'll remember times when you denied your desire out of fear. Maybe you'll start seeing patterns, but you won't be able to look at certain people or yourself the same way. Trust me, that's a good sign. Because only what is first seen with brutal honesty can transform. Before you go, I want you to do something. If you've made it this far, it's no accident. Comment below with this phrase, "My shadow no longer scares me." Don't do it for me, do it for you. Because writing it, saying it out loud, recognizing it, that's an act of power. It's the first step toward living in truth instead of denial. If this video has touched something deep inside you, if it's moved even a stone from the wall you've built around your desire, subscribe. Because this channel isn't here to entertain you. It's here to challenge you, to shake you, to show you what no one else will. We're not here to decorate the surface. We're here to blow it up. Follow me if you dare to look at what others hide. If you're tired of empty explanations, if you're ready to stop lying to yourself, and now I'm leaving, but before I do, listen closely. Turn off the screen, close your eyes, and ask yourself silently, what part of me have I been denying all this time? Take a deep breath and listen to what silence tells you. 'Cause sometimes what you don't hear is the loudest. See you in the next video, or maybe in your shadow.